Gentlemen, let's have a heart-to-heart. No ego, no posturing, just truth. This conversation isn't wrapped in comfort. It might not feel good, in fact it might hurt, but pain often carries the seed of growth. And what I'm about to share are the lessons many men only realize when it's too late to do anything about them. This isn't to shame you, it's to awaken you, to shift you from who you were told to be to who you were meant to be. So, because if you're still breathing, you still have time. Time to love smarter, lead better. No one is coming to save you. That's a sentence that echoes in the silence when life strips you bare. When the lights go out, the applause fades, and you're left sitting with nothing but the reality of your choices and the weight of your own decisions. It's a truth most men ignore for far too long, believing that someday someone will come along and fix it all. Maybe a partner who will understand him completely. Maybe a friend who will guide him out of darkness. Maybe a break that will suddenly change his life. But the truth is, that moment rarely comes. Not because the world is cruel, but because it was never built to save you. It was built to test you, to sharpen you, to force you into becoming the man you were always meant to be. When you were younger, maybe you were told that if you behaved, worked hard, and played nice, good things would come to you. So you waited. You tried to fit in. You compromised who you were just to be accepted. You silenced your voice just to avoid confrontation. You buried your dreams because someone else said they weren't realistic. And deep down, part of you still hoped, still believed that someday someone would notice, that someday someone would see how much you've been holding on, how much you've been carrying, how hard you've been trying, and just say, "Here, let me take care of it for you." But life doesn't work that way, because real growth doesn't come from being rescued. It comes from rising when no one offers you a hand, from standing up when your legs are shaking, from learning how to trust yourself when no one else does. It means taking accountability for your story, no matter how broken it feels. It means being honest with yourself about the habits you've let slide, the time you've wasted, the people you've let stay too long, and the opportunities you've ignored out of fear. It means understanding that blaming the world, your parents, your ex, your boss, or even God, won't fix what's broken inside you. That only you can do that. That no amount of complaining, wishing, or waiting will move your life forward until you do. The pain you feel, the frustration, the loneliness, it's not there to punish you. It's there to wake you up, to push you into taking control. Because the moment you realize no one is coming, something shifts inside you. A fire, a resolve, a clarity you've never known before. You stop begging for permission. You stop waiting for signs. You stop asking people what they think about your dreams. You stop playing small to make others feel comfortable. You start acting like your life depends on it, because it does. And here's what's wild. The moment you stop waiting to be saved, you begin saving yourself. You start becoming the kind of man who doesn't need to be validated to feel worthy, who doesn't chase attention to feel important, who doesn't fold under pressure but rises through it. You become dangerous in the best way, unstoppable, focused, clear, not because you have all the answers, but because you've stopped giving your power away to people who were never meant to carry it. And in that space, where ownership meets discipline, you start to evolve. You begin to build habits, not excuses, standards, not stories, discipline, not drama. And slowly, your life starts to mirror the man you were always capable of becoming. But none of that happens until you let go of the fantasy that someone's going to come and change your life for you. No woman, no mentor, no opportunity, not even this message. They can support you, yes, they can inspire you, but they can't be you. They can't take the steps for you. They can't sit with your fears, face your wounds, or climb your mountains. That's your job, your duty, your responsibility. And the longer you avoid it, the longer you stay stuck in cycles that silently erode your spirit, your confidence, and your future. Time is your most precious currency, yet it's the one thing you treat as if it's unlimited. You waste it like it'll always be there, like you can hit pause, rewind, or buy more when you feel ready to start taking life seriously. But every second you spend hesitating, doubting, distracting yourself, or entertaining things that drain you is a second you'll never get back. The illusion that you have time is the biggest lie you've been sold. You keep telling yourself you'll start tomorrow, next week, next year, when you feel more prepared, when the timing is better, when everything around you aligns perfectly. But deep down, you know that's a lie. There is no perfect moment. There is only right now. And the people who win in life are the ones who understand that time waits for no one, and that hesitation is a thief dressed like logic. You don't feel the urgency until it's too late. You don't realize how fast life is moving until the opportunities you once had are no longer available. The love you took for granted walks away. The dreams you shelved quietly fade. The people you thought would be there forever don't stay. And one day, you wake up and realize you've been living on autopilot, confusing movement for progress, busyness for purpose, survival for success. You scroll, you binge, you coast through your days, convincing yourself that you're resting when what you're really doing is avoiding. Avoiding the work, the risk, the discomfort, the responsibility of becoming the version of yourself that you secretly admire in others. You look back at your life and start counting the moments you should have shown up more boldly, the words you should have said, the chances you didn't take, the relationships you let slip through your fingers because you assumed you had more time. And it eats at you, not because you failed, but because deep down, you knew you could have done more. You knew you had more inside you, but you let fear disguise itself as patience and procrastination mask itself as planning. You tell yourself you're waiting for the right time, but really, you're just scared to find out who you'd be if you actually gave it everything. And while you're waiting, someone else is using the same 24 hours to outgrow the excuses you're still entertaining. They're learning the skills, making the calls, taking the hits, failing and trying again, not because they're braver or smarter, but because they understand the cost of time. They know that every day you waste is a day closer to regret, a day closer to wondering what could have happened if you didn't let comfort steal your future. Time doesn't slow down just because you're not ready. It doesn't stop because you're unsure. It keeps moving, with or without you. And the only question that matters is, are you using it to build the life you want, or wasting it, avoiding the one you're afraid to change? Being nice won't get you respected, but too many men confuse being agreeable with being valuable. You think that by saying yes to everything, never creating waves, always being available, and constantly trying to please others, you're showing strength or kindness. But what you're really doing is shrinking yourself to be liked. And over time, people don't admire that. They take it for granted. They don't see it as a noble quality. They see it as weakness. Because when you're too nice, too accommodating, too eager to be accepted, people start to believe you don't have a spine, that you don't have standards, that you don't value yourself enough to say no. You get overlooked in rooms where you should be recognized. You get passed by for leadership roles, for relationships with depth, for real power. Not because you're not good enough, but because you've trained people to see you as disposable. You've built a reputation around comfort instead of conviction. You'd rather be liked than respected. And the problem with that is that respect lasts longer. Respect leaves a mark. Respect makes people think twice before they cross you. But when you're just nice, people assume you'll always stay, always agree, always tolerate, no matter how poorly they treat you. So you find yourself in patterns where people walk all over you and you blame them, but the truth is you trained them to do it. Every time you smiled when you wanted to speak up, every time you agreed when your gut screamed no, every time you showed up for people who wouldn't do the same for you, you reinforced the idea that your time, your energy, your worth was negotiable, that you could be bent, pushed, pulled in any direction just to avoid conflict. And the harsh reality is that conflict is not the enemy. Compromise of self is. You think you're keeping the peace, but what you're really doing is keeping yourself from evolving. You don't have to be cruel, rude, or cold to earn respect, but you do have to be clear. Clear about your values, clear about your time, clear about what you will and will not accept. Because clarity breeds boundaries, and boundaries breed respect. When you operate from a place of grounded self-worth, you don't need to beg for anyone's approval. You don't chase validation. You don't tolerate disrespect dressed up as love or friendship. You speak with conviction, you walk with intention, and you stop giving discounts to people who haven't earned full access. There's nothing wrong with being kind, but kindness without strength, without backbone, without identity, becomes submission. It becomes self-erasure. You begin to disappear under the weight of everyone else's needs, and one day you'll look in the mirror and not recognize yourself because you've spent your life molding into what everyone else wanted instead of becoming who you were meant to be. Respect begins the moment you stop performing for acceptance and start showing up from a place of, she is not your purpose. But many men build their entire identity around a woman, a relationship, or the fantasy of being loved completely. You convince yourself that once you find her, once she chooses you, once she sees how good of a man you are, your life will finally make sense. You'll feel whole, validated, enough. But what you don't realize is that when you make a woman your purpose, you hand her the keys to your worth. You place the weight of your happiness, confidence, and identity in her hands. And then you wonder why it all falls apart when she changes, leaves, or simply doesn't respond the way you hoped. It's not because love is flawed, it's because you never had your own foundation. You spent years molding yourself into what you thought would be lovable. You dimmed your ambition to be more available. You sacrificed your boundaries to prove you were loyal. You dropped your passions, your friendships, your routines, all in hopes that she'd finally give you the validation you were too afraid to build within yourself. But no woman, no matter how incredible, can sustain that kind of pressure. She wasn't created to complete you, she was created to complement you. And there's a difference. One brings life, the other brings dependence. And dependence always leads to resentment, fear, and emotional chaos. Because the moment she pulls away, you feel like your entire identity is unraveling. You start chasing, you start begging, you start losing yourself just to keep her. And you tell yourself it's love, but it's not. It's survival. You become emotionally reactive, anxious, insecure. And nothing she does is ever enough to make you feel secure, because the truth is, you were never secure within yourself to begin with. You placed your peace in her hands, and now you're angry that she can't carry it. But she was never supposed to. That was always your job, and the sooner you take it back, the freer you'll become. When a man is anchored in his purpose, in his mission, in a vision that excites and fulfills him, he doesn't lose himself in love, he brings himself to love. He enters relationships with strength, not need, with presence, not obsession, with leadership, not control. He doesn't look for a woman to complete his story. He invites her to walk beside him as he writes it. And if she leaves, if the relationship ends, he doesn't crumble, because his identity wasn't built on her affection, it was built on his alignment with who he is and where he's going. You don't need to stop loving deeply or giving fully. But before you give yourself to a woman, make sure you've already given yourself a direction. Make sure you've built something you're proud of without needing someone to clap for it. Because if your entire world can be shaken by someone walking away, it means you never had a world of your own to begin with, taught strength. But you've been told all your life that it is. You've been conditioned to believe that real men don't cry, that speaking about your pain is weakness, that holding it all in and pushing through it alone somehow makes you more powerful, So you suffer quietly. You smile when you're breaking inside. You nod and say, I'm good. When your world feels like it's falling apart, and you think that this is what it means to be strong, you think that by staying silent, by not needing help, by pretending everything is fine, you're protecting your image, your pride, your masculinity. But what you're really doing is slowly destroying yourself from the inside out. You carry wounds no one sees, pain no one knows, and you wear masks so well that even you start to believe you don't feel anything anymore. But numbness isn't peace. Avoidance isn't healing. Suppressing your emotions doesn't make you more of a man. It just buries your truth deeper until it shows up in ways you can't control. It comes out as rage when someone pushes you too far. It leaks out in silence when the people you love are trying to connect. It creeps in during quiet nights when everything goes still and you can't run from your thoughts anymore. And even then, you keep it locked inside because you think no one will understand, or worse, that no one cares. You've been taught that your value lies in being the rock, the provider, the one who always has it together. So the moment you feel anything that threatens that image, pain, fear, anxiety, sadness, you treat it like an enemy, like something you have to fight off alone. But the truth is, every time you hide your struggle, you rob yourself of connection, of healing, of growth. You rob yourself of the human experience, of the depth and intimacy that only come from being fully seen. You can't form real bonds if you're always performing. You can't be truly loved if no one ever sees the real you. And you can't heal if you keep pretending you're not hurting. Speaking your truth isn't weakness. It's one of the strongest things you can do. Letting someone in, even when your voice shakes, even when your walls scream to stay up, takes more courage than staying silent ever will. It means you're willing to be honest, willing to be raw, willing to face whatever's inside you without shame. And that kind of vulnerability, real, grounded, intentional, isn't just powerful, it's transformational. It doesn't mean you break down at every obstacle or fall apart in front of anyone. It means you choose wisely who gets access, and then you open the door. You speak even when it's uncomfortable. You release instead of suppress. You feel instead of performing emotional indifference. Because the strongest men aren't the ones who hide the most. They're the ones who know when to speak, when to share, when to ask for help, and when to say, I'm not okay, but I will be. That's not weakness. That's leadership. That's clarity. That's what emotional intelligence looks like, and it's what builds resilience that doesn't just survive the storm, but walks through it with purpose. You don't have to carry it all alone. You don't have to suffer in silence just because that's what you were shown. You don't have to be a prisoner of your own pride, your own fear of looking soft, because there is nothing soft about choosing to feel, nothing weak about owning your pain, nothing shameful about being real with your own humanity. The moment you let go of the silence is the moment you start to reconnect with yourself. And that man, the one who feels deeply and chooses strength through honesty, becomes a force no pain can silence again. Your friends shape your future more than your ambition ever will, but that's something most men don't realize until it's already cost them years of their life. You think your goals, your dreams, your grind are what determine your destiny. But the people you surround yourself with determine how far you go, how focused you stay, and whether you even believe it's possible in the first place. The truth is, you will rise or fall based on the energy, the mindset, and the standards of the people closest to you. If you're surrounded by men who normalize mediocrity, who spend more time talking about women than building something, who think ambition is something to mock or judge, Then slowly, even without noticing, you begin to lower your bar to match theirs. You start laughing at the same lazy jokes, accepting the same excuses, settling for the same distractions, because no one around you is challenging you to grow. No one is calling you out. No one is asking you to be better. And that comfort, that false sense of belonging becomes a cage disguised as brotherhood. You tell yourself that you're just loyal, that these are your boys, your circle. But loyalty to the wrong crowd isn't noble. It's self-sabotage. Some people aren't your friends, they're your anchors. Some aren't supporting you, and if you're not careful, you'll spend years explaining your lack of growth with words like loyalty and history, when really, it's fear of being alone that keeps you tied to the people who keep you small. Growth is uncomfortable, and sometimes it means outgrowing the people who once felt like home. Not because you're better than them, but because you've chosen to become better than who you were. And that decision will cost you relationships. It'll make people uncomfortable. It'll make you feel guilty, like you're abandoning something. But what you're really doing is choosing alignment over attachment. You're choosing your future over your comfort. You're choosing to be around people who challenge you, stretch you, sharpen you, not just the ones who validate your current version. When you get in rooms with men who are disciplined, focused, intentional, who talk about ideas, ownership, legacy, emotional mastery, something inside you begins to shift. You start realizing how much you've been tolerating. You start feeling the gap between who you are and who you could be. And that gap is painful, but it's also powerful because it forces you to decide to rise or to retreat, to step up or to settle. Every conversation, every hangout, every group chat is either watering your growth or feeding your stagnation. You can't be serious about evolving if you're surrounded by people who are committed to staying the same. You don't need 100 people clapping for you. You need a few people who won't let you quit. People who tell you the truth, not just what you want to hear. People who see your potential and won't let you hide from it. Brotherhood isn't about comfort. It's about calling each other higher. It's about creating an environment where ambition isn't something you apologize for, where discipline isn't mocked, where vision isn't treated like a fantasy. Women, it's about surrounding yourself with men who remind you of your greatness when you forget it yourself. Your circle matters more than your motivation. It determines what you normalize, what you aim for, what you allow. Choose it with intention. Audit it with honesty. Because the cost of keeping the wrong people close is always your progress, and your future deserves more than the weight of people who don't want to grow with you. No one is coming to save you, and that truth hits hardest when life falls apart and you realize how alone you actually are, in your pain, in your choices, in your path. For a long time, you carry this quiet hope that someone out there, maybe a mentor, a partner, a parent, a friend, will come along and finally give you the guidance, the validation, the push you've been waiting for. You think someone will hand you the map, show you the shortcuts, open the door that leads to your breakthrough. But that moment never comes. And the longer you wait, the more powerless you begin to feel, because deep down, you've been living like your life is on hold until someone else believes in you enough to wake you up. It's not your fault you were wired to think this way. From the time you were young, someone else was always there, telling you what to do, when to do it, how to act, what success looks like, who you should become. So you were conditioned to wait for instructions, for permission, for approval. And that conditioning doesn't just vanish, it lingers. It shows up when you're too afraid to make a bold move without someone co-signing it. It shows up when you know what you want but can't commit to it without asking everyone else what they think. It shows up when your default response to a problem is to shut down, hoping someone else will come fix it. But no one is coming. Not because they don't care, but because your growth isn't anyone else's responsibility. You are the one who has to get up every day and choose to fight for the life you say you want. You are the one who has to dig deep when no one claps for you, when no one believes in your vision, when no one understands the fire inside you. You are the one who has to decide that your excuses aren't stronger than your potential. Because there comes a point when your pain, your story, your past, no matter how heavy, can no longer be your reason for standing still. Self-responsibility is not a punishment, it's the most liberating power you'll ever claim. It means your future isn't dependent on your circumstances or your upbringing or how broken things have been. It means you don't need to wait for someone to rescue you when you were built to rise on your own. But that kind of strength doesn't come from motivation. It comes from daily discipline. It comes from showing up even when you're tired, scared, uncertain. It comes from choosing progress over pity, effort over ego, truth over comfort. The men who transformed their lives aren't the ones who had the most support, the most resources, or the perfect timing. They're the ones who decided that waiting was more painful than trying, that fear wasn't a strong enough reason to stay stuck, that they'd rather fail on their own terms than live a life built on someone else's permission. Because once you stop waiting to be saved, you start realizing how much power you actually have. You stop outsourcing your decisions. You stop waiting for the world to give you a green light. You become the source of your own permission, your own leadership, your own standard. No one is coming, but you don't need them to. Everything you need is already inside you. Clarity, strength, wisdom, the answers, the fire. But it only awakens when you finally stop handing your life over to someone else's timeline. This is your responsibility, your mountain to climb, your journey to walk. And the moment you decide to take full ownership, without excuses, without blame, without waiting, is the moment everything begins to change. Maybe this speech made you uncomfortable. Maybe it made you angry. Maybe it cracked open a truth you've buried for too long. Good growth never comes from comfort. And if you're still listening, then deep down, you're ready. Ready. Ready to stop surviving and start living. Ready to lead yourself before leading anyone else. Ready to become the man you were always meant to be. Because real masculinity isn't loud, isn't reckless, isn't desperate. It's intentional. Choose to live on purpose before life forces you to reflect on what you should have done when it's already too late.